Hello again, guys. It's Lewis Cooper here. Uh, Thanks for checking out this video. I'm kind of diversifying my channel a little bit at the moment and trying different things. And this is what I want to do. I might make it a regular thing, I might not, but it's things I like talking about. So this is my top five, my personal top five Leonardo DiCaprio performances. Now, Leo is quite possibly my favorite actor. It's between him and Brad Pitt, really, which will probably be the next top five video I do. Um, but yeah. I think when I was a kid and he first sort of become really famous, like Titanic and Romeo and Juliet and stuff like that, I always looked at him as kind of being like the pretty boy, which I think a lot of boys my age did. Like young teenagers, stuff like girls liked him, and as a man, you were like, "Oh no, he's rubbish. He's a pretty boy," kind of thing. Um, but in recent years, I've realised that's very much not the case, and some of these performances are the reasons I realised that. So we'll just get straight in. So number five is What's Eating Gilbert Grape, directed by Lasse Hallström. This is 1993 film, and so this is a while before he became like proper famous. He was just a young man. I think he was like 18 when this film was made, and I only watched it recently. But I've been aware of it for a long time. Like American Dad did a parody of it many years ago. Um, but yeah, it's a film Johnny Depp as well. And Leo plays Johnny Depp's main character is Gilbert Grape. He plays his younger brother Arnie, who's a mentally challenged boy, and a big part of the film because Johnny Depp's character has to look after him. And like I say, this is one of those things where um, I always thought, say, Leo was the young pretty boy, and then later on he became a great actor. But when you watch his early stuff like this and this boy's life as well, you realise he always was as great as he is now. It was just it took a while for people to see that in his bigger films in many ways. But yeah, I read recently that some of the cast and crew who didn't know who he was actually thought like he was mentally challenged, like in real life kind of thing, because he was so convincing, and he really is. It's a really remarkable performance, like really physical and really believable. And this was actually his first Oscar nomination as well, which is quite remarkable to get an Oscar nomination at that young an age too. But yeah, I'd recommend checking it out. It's really something to watch. So Johnny Depp's really good in it as well, and Juliette Lewis is in it as well. Um, Number four, which is a rare film for later on in DiCaprio, where he's not the lead role, is Django Unchained. And like I say, he's not a small character, but he's not one of the main characters in this. He's only in it for a limited amount of time. And if I recall correctly, I don't think it was public knowledge that he was in the film. I think it was kind of kept a little bit kind of a secret. And that might just be me. I don't remember seeing him in the trailer or anything like that. Although at the time I wasn't as into films as I am now, so maybe I missed it. But I just remember that quite iconic 'cause it's been memed a lot. That zoom shot of going into his face, and you kind of go, "Oh, that's DiCaprio." And he's just, again, it's a rare character for him where he's just this horrible, unlikable person. And I think that's what really drew him to it as well, kind of thing. Um, there's the famous scene in it where he loses his temper despite his character being kind of the southern gentleman in a lot of ways, as a kind of a facade, when he really loses his temper and he smashes his hand down on the table, and he accidentally, while filming it, caught his hand on the glass and sliced his hand open. Um, and then carried on filming the scene, and that is the take that's in the movie. So if you look close enough, you can see his hand bleeding, and then they work in where he's wrapping his hand up, kind of thing. Um, I do remember listening to something recently with Tarantino, where he's talking about when he wrote that character, it wasn't quite complete in his head, and it was the only character he didn't like that he'd written. But I think either DiCaprio brought something to it, or he came up with something for the character himself that made Tarantino kind of go, actually, yeah, that makes it work. That's a complete character in my eyes now. But I think it really stands out in his performances because it's so horrible and unlikable, and he's this character that's just so unsympathetic in every possible way. But that's number four. Number three is The Wolf of Wall Street by Martin Scorsese. Um, I think this was one where a lot of people who maybe hadn't seen DiCaprio in like a bigger movie for a while, like he did, obviously, he does big movies, he has done for a long time, but I feel like this was like a huge hit, this film, and I think a lot of people, everyone knows who he is, but this was kind of like people were like, wow, this guy's really something. It's a really varied role where he plays Jordan Belfort, who obviously is a real life person, and I think he's a bit more exaggerated in the film than he was in real life, but who's to say? I have read the book that the film is based on as well. But yeah, he plays him as kind of from sort of humble beginnings kind of thing, and then but the character always has this underlying confidence that first starts to come out when he gets into, building his business and stuff like that. Um, and then he goes all the way to the other end of the spectrum where he goes to like kind of the bottom of the barrel. Like he goes too far into the world of excess that like it really starts to take a toll on him. But my favorite thing about it is kind of the physical nature of it, like the really well known scene where he's taken like quaaludes and his entire body is more or less shut down and he can't talk or walk or anything. And there's that brilliant scene where he falls down the steps that in his mind he sees as being far more steps than there actually is, and then he crawls to the car and opens his car, which is one of those old cars that kind of opens like that with the door, like the sports cars kind of thing. And I think they said it was Leo's idea to open the door with his foot, and then he managed to. I mean, you can look it up on YouTube, but it's a great bit where the door comes open with his foot attached. I read a thing that like he hurt his back doing that or something, but it was all his idea. And there's the scene where he saves Donnie while he's choking, and they're both high, and it's like almost like a slow motion kind of fight where they're trying to save him but also trying to kill him at the same time, sort of thing. Um, but yeah, that's mainly what I like about it, is the real physical side of it as well. Um, Number two, another Scorsese film, The Aviator. Um, this was the film for me that I don't know why I got it. I think I was interested in Howard Hughes, and I brought it on Blu-ray a long time ago. And I remember coming home from work and thinking, this film's only 3 hours, and I can sit down and watch the whole thing. And I absolutely loved it. And I watched it again recently, and it's brilliant. Like I really feel like it's one that's not mentioned often enough. But I love Scorsese, and I'm a big Scorsese guy. Um, but yeah, he plays Howard Hughes, the aviator and the film director. And again, it's another one where it's a really varied role that goes over a long period of time. Like all these films are quite long, really. Um, he, you see him kind of like in the court, like deposition scenes in the film, and the scenes where he's directing films, and how confident he is, even as a young man. Like he's got all the money, all the power, and he's just like, we can do it. Whatever you need, we'll do it. Um, and the brilliant scene where they're filming the plane battle, like it's a war film that they're making in the film, and like it's just him in the plane, and they're filming, and it's really really good. But the thing that really drew me to it was his portrayal, because Howard Hughes was renowned for having quite debilitating obsessive compulsive disorder. Um, and he portrays that really well. And I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive myself. I wouldn't say to the point where it's a problem, but sometimes people go, "Oh yeah, that's kind of your thing," and I'm like, "It's not that bad," but um, but there's a scene where he has this little kit with him that he uses to wash his hands every time he goes to the toilet, and he has to have a special kit that he scrubs his hands with and that kind of thing. And there's one where he goes into the bathroom at a restaurant and the door closes behind him, which he doesn't realise, and you don't realise as the viewer initially. And then he spends ages scrubbing his hands, and then he turns around and he has to open the door handle, but there's just this moment where he realises the door's closed and he spent all this time scrubbing his hands, and he'll have to then touch the door handle when it's clean, and it's just this almost like a horror movie moment, and I can really relate to it. He just kind of goes, made me realise how good he actually was when I watched it years and years ago. And my number one, DiCaprio performance. This will come as no surprise to people who know me, but it is Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is quite possibly my favourite film. And I know that's probably quite divisive because a lot of people don't like it. That's fair enough. But if you see above my head, if I move that way, that's 6 of the tickets from when I saw it at the cinema. That's all the times I saw it at the cinema. Um, and if you look to my left here, hang on, there's 2 posters there. There's actually 6 in total of films from the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But again, it's another one. I really love the variety of it. I love that he's an actor playing actors, so it's multiple performances. Like if you get pictures of each of his performances in this film and put them next to each other, it's like a completely different series of films. You wouldn't believe they're all from the same movie, because I know they're obviously movies in movies. Um, but I like the character Rick Dalton that he plays is sometimes really arrogant, sometimes a bit unlikable, but he's really insecure as well about who he is and what he can do, especially now he's getting older in his career and that. Like I say, I'll avoid spoilers for all of these things anyway, really, to the best I can, just in case you haven't seen it yet. Um, But yeah, he does a marvelous job of just playing the two opposite ends of this character, the kind of the public side of him, where he's a bit, he's like your typical actor, and he's a bit self-centered, and then to the other side where he's just this guy who's just not sure of himself. He There's a scene early on with him and Al Pacino where Pacino is a big film producer who's trying to get him into Italian movies, and he's not being mean to him, but he's not sugarcoating anything, and he just kind of points out to Rick like where his career is going, and like Rick's quite excited to meet with him to begin with because he knows this is going to be something important, and then it's just brilliant the way DiCaprio's face changes through it, and he just kind of drops as Al Pacino's character um, is kind of telling him like how it is kind of thing, and he just kind of says like, if you keep doing what you're doing now, your star's going to drop. You're going to be less and less famous, less and less successful. You need to be a leading man. And it took me a couple of goes to really appreciate what DiCaprio was doing in that scene because it's so subtle. But he really changes, and that's the thing about the film is that in his performances and that these big, bold, dramatic performances when he's doing the films, and then there's just the other side of it where it's really quiet. Because I went into this film thinking when I saw the trailer, I was going to come out saying another brilliant DiCaprio performance. But when I first saw it, I came out thinking Brad Pitt is the greatest actor in the world, and this is obviously the film Brad Pitt won the Oscar for, and he's the one that really stands out. He's the big, bold kind of character. But then when I watched it a few more times, I appreciated how subtle and brilliant DiCaprio is in this film. I just like just it is just in the facial expressions and like when his character gets emotional, it's the look in his eyes and stuff like that. To the point where you go, how does someone even make themselves do that? Like it's just incredible. Um, and the main point of the film is one of the main points of the film is him and his friendship with Cliff, Brad Pitt's character, and he kind of takes Cliff for granted for a lot of it. Like he treats him like an employee because he kind of is. He pays Cliff to do stuff around the house and to drive him around and that. And then with events later on in the film, which again I won't spoil, he does come to really appreciate that what he actually has, like that this is a true friend, like as he says to him as well, or a good friend. And you see kind of the love between those two characters as well, which is for me is the best bit about the film. That's my favourite part of it. But yeah, um, yeah, that's it. That's my top five. And again, I've not seen every single DiCaprio film, so if you have others that you like and I haven't included them, I'm sorry. Feel free to mention them in the comments. Just don't call me an idiot for not including them, preferably. I mean, there's a lot of other ones that I really like. I like The Revenant, which is obviously what won Leo his Oscar. That was, his most physical performance as well. Um, I watched Catch Me If You Can again the other day. He's great in that as well. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of other really solid performances that he's done. But those were my top five. Like I say, if people like this video, let me know. Please leave a like, please subscribe, comment with what